All right, council item 11. Consider take appropriate action regarding the Trophy Club Veterans Memorial. Receive an update from Trophy Club Women's Club, discussion of same. I think, Connie, are you going to make the presentation? Do we have slides for you, or do you just have a poster?
We have slides.
Oh, it's on the floor now.
Oh, no, I left the poster actually for anyone else that
Okay.
wanted to take a look at it.
All right.
Okay. So, we're here to talk about the Veterans Memorial. And, okay, how did we get here? I know you've had a lot of discussions and presentations and materials the last several months, so I'm not going to go through all the history. But basically, it began in 2012. Oh, I should have said, I'm Connie White. I live at 119 Trophy Club Drive. Okay. It began in 2012 and was approved by the Town Council on September 24th of 2012. Originally, it was basically a homegrown design, and we finished the first two stages. The first stage being the flagpole and the centerpiece, and then some additional with the big sign out front. Those are the first two stages. But then there became, a lot of interest in it and a lot of desire to go further and do something more. And Tignall and Perkins agreed and offered to create a design for a marketable project. And then the Women's Club requested further effort from Tignall to define cost and break down into phases. And based on the design, and we're going to go through that, we'll begin with phase one. In the meantime, I know this is an issue, you all have had questions. Trophy Club Women's Club sold bricks as pavers, and those will be included in the first new phase. And we have sent a letter to every purchaser of the bricks regarding that. The financial up to right now, the original flagpole and the light, et cetera, that was the first phase, was about $2,400. The seats, the wall, walkway, and the granite monument was another $8,600. The original survey that, because Tignall also did a complete survey of the property and the design, and that was what they donated, that was worth $5,000. And then the phasing and costing effort is another $5,000. As I've noted, we haven't paid that, so the numbers below, will be reduced by that amount. On the plus side, Trophy Club Women's Club funds from the Garden Club, approximately $11,500. Stars and Stripes has given us a total of $8,500. Beck Elementary, another $500, and we received a Metroport Rotary grant for $1,300. And there have been a lot of sponsors of different things, but I really wanted to point this out because I think it illustrates just how much we have involvement from our community, whether it be the schools, whether it be the Metroport Rotary, and Stars and Stripes. And that the Metroport was a grant that we applied for. Here is a picture of the overall design. And what I thought I would do is just go through what and it's on the next slides, but I'm going to actually leave this one up so you can see it as I talk to it and go through what the architect gave us as his idea of what this design represents. The military branches are individually recognized with the 5 military flags and the 5 walls. Those will be you've got the center flag, and you've got the circles around, and there are 5 different walls there.
Honey, you actually can use the mouse and point to things with the
Oh,
mouse, and
okay.
you can see where it is.
Got it. Okay, so here you've got 5 pedestals, monuments. Out here you have the 5 walls, okay? The arching lines of the flags and the junipers in military formation, and that intersects, here you've got intersects with the center flagpole. The rigid berms, you have rigid berms around here, and they edge the border of the plaza, and the sharpness as representing the sharpness of military discipline. The granite pillars for each military branch replicating the Washington Monument shape to signify strength and fortitude. That's these in the center. Those are the granite pillars. The perimeter shrubs in a subtle defensive posture surrounding the plaza, like the U.S. And in front of each military wall, here, hold that still, will be 2 inlaid plaques that flank a strong radial band. You see the band coming from the center, and it goes out to the wall. And those will lead away from the center for famous quotes that honor the veterans. And the quotes will be appropriate to each service. Okay, then what we talk about is some more of the symbolism, but now focusing a little heavier on the functionality of the design. The trees along the trail over here are to baffle and block from the baseball fields, buffer between them. The canopy trees in concentric alignment to provide shade, as well as to emphasize the repetition of concentric elements of the overall memorial. So you see circles proceeding out. And we felt the shade was really important because it makes this memorial really usable year-round, and as opposed to being, in the heat of the summer in Texas can be pretty miserable. The paved stone added in the center and at the connecting walk to the trail is for element continuity and the opportunity for engraving. If you see these darker spots here, right here and down here, is where you will see the pavers, the bricks that we talked about and others. And one of the things too is these walkways are designed, right now what you have is like flagstone. It's really not conducive to somebody who might be in a wheelchair or even just have difficulty walking. They're kind of tricky to walk on. The picnic areas have been slightly isolated, but they remain a part of the overall memorial. Now, I understand that there may be a question whether we want picnic areas or not. You all may have some input on that. We're more than happy, not more than happy, but we're willing to consider, taking those out if we feel that's not appropriate for the park. Not something that has to be decided right away, but it is a factor. Any existing features of the park that aren't shown will be turned back into lawn, letting the strength of the memorial design dominate the area. And the outer band here, you see these little things here, they will be like vignettes. They might be something about the Korean War or the Vietnam War or any specific thing that somebody would like to fund and put up there. Those won't be decided right now. They'll be decided down the road as we find the need, as we develop that further. The water wall on the outside of the trail to provide tranquility as well as completing the circle. And I know that's another question, which is one of the reasons why we're talking about really focusing on phase 1 and perhaps 2 at this point. The stone retaining wall. Now, I don't know if you can tell that, but you see here, this darker wall right there is going to be a stone retaining wall with most likely brick and backlit lettering, just like, very similar to the roundabout, which will create both a really nice facade for it as well as continuity with other elements in the town. And most of the, existing trees we feel are of a size that can be moved, so we won't have a problem. Okay? So I'm going to go past those. Okay, so phasing. Once the initial design was completed, as I mentioned, we requested TIGNAL to develop a phasing plan with estimated cost breakdowns for each phase. Our requirement to them was that the phase be complete in itself, so that if we should come along and say, we can't raise funds, we can only do one phase, it will be complete. It won't look half done. It will always be that respect and complete piece. 4 phases were designed, and as I said, tonight we're looking to move forward with phase 1 and possibly 2. Now, I have a note here. The numbering is based on the TIGNAL design. We had a lot of discussion. Are we really talking phase 1 or are we talking phase 3? And the TIGNAL picture right now shows these 1 through 4. And we felt like as we go out to market this, it might be better to do it that way. or we have to have them change all the designs. So we haven't worked that out, but right now we're planning phase 1 through 4. Does anybody have a question on that? Does that make sense?
Fine.
Okay. Okay, phase 1 is the core. We'll redo the inner circle. We'll do the concrete, the pavers, and those will include the memorial pavers, the 5 pillars, and the 5 walls. Now, I have pictures. I can get out of this if you'd like to see the pictures of the phases. I know you've had them, but just let me know. And that first phase estimated cost is about $81,000. And we're planning to upsize the flagpole because they designed around the current flagpole, and we're thinking as we build this park out that it really needs to be larger, and that's something we have to do right up front. And we have requested that information from Tignall, but we haven't received it yet. Okay, phase 2 will be the next circle around that will bring in the landscape, some of the landscaping, the rigid berms that I showed you on the original one, and the mow bands. That phase would be approximately $35,000. The third phase is our most expensive. That's the outer circle. That includes the shade trees, the decomposed granite that will be there to reduce some of the maintenance, the perimeter shrubs, the military flags. We're talking about the possibility of moving the military flags, which you saw in that up front. We may move that into an earlier phase if we're able to manage the funding, because we think that's kind of critical. It would include the vignette walls and the stone retaining wall. This is our most expensive phase at $147,000. We also need a little more time to raise that kind of money. And phase 4 is extending across the trail, the shade trees, screening the ball field, the water wall, and relocating the sign. The idea of relocating the sign is right now that sign is along the street, but once we put that wall in, the retaining wall, which has Military Veterans Memorial on it, the sign becomes redundant. And we thought it would be more appropriate then to move it onto our trail, because the idea is our trail system in town, this actually goes right through the memorial, and that would be the identification to anyone walking the trail. So that would be about $47,000. Okay? Okay. So how do we plan to proceed? First of all, we're going to focus on phase 1, which we believe is a manageable effort. The construction period, they've told us, would be about 60 days. So my goal, I know this is a stretch, but my goal is to complete this phase prior to November 11th, Veterans Day of this year. Okay. The next thing in our plan is to establish the committee structure, define roles and responsibilities, and seek funding. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of those. The committee structure, Women's Club is set up, the Veterans Committee, we have a core committee. We'll be having a marketing committee, fundraising, and a grant subcommittee under that, communications and community liaisons with the different organizations, and then a construction committee where we'll be sure to get some expertise so that we are able to move forward in a logical, complete manner. So, speaking more about the roles and responsibilities, because I know this was a question you all had in the past. What is the role of the Veterans Committee? And then the next slide will be about what the role and responsibility of the town would be. So, the Veterans Committee would be to raise funds. We are a 501c3. To secure the design and finalize the design and obtain detailed construction documents. And as I said, I've contacted Tignall and to see what that would entail. Provide committee members and enlist. We will be enlisting some committee members outside of the Women's Club to expand our scope and reach. The project coordination, communication with the council, the community, with veterans, and the schools and region. And then to provide flags, and I know that sounds like, oh, but flags, as we look at this as a long-term thing, flags need to be replaced approximately 4 times a year. That's the discussion I've had with Adam, is what our experience is with these kinds of flags. So that's an expense that we will have to build into whatever we do. and then to manage the finances and have spending approval on any of the efforts that we do. The town roles and responsibilities. Of course, the town owns the property. The town will maintain the property. The town will raise and lower the flags as needed by governmental decree. You know, when the president comes out and says it's half-mast, or the governor, the town will do that. I think the fire department usually does it. The utilities costs over time and the insurance would be under the town. They would contribute labor where possible. They'll oversee construction to ensure that our construction meets the town standards. Promote the project, and the town would control scheduling for any events there. We already have systems in place for scheduling, so that would make a lot of sense. And then, of course, you see my question mark, provide matching funds. We would, of course, appreciate some consideration of funds as we move through this project. And this is my recommendation and my discussion with some staff, and it's part of your discussion. On funding, so what are we thinking about in doing funding? We'll be seeking grants. As I mentioned, we've already received one from the Metroport Rotary. We'll be soliciting in-kind donations. We know there are people in town that have different skills and different capabilities and businesses, and we would hope to be able, we've already had some, like some stone, and the benches were originally an in-kind donation, and of course the engineering. We'll be looking to service branches. We're thinking that, the different veterans from different service branches might want to, come together and do the wall for their branch. Of course, we don't have too many Coast Guard people here, so that might be a bit of an issue. We're looking at corporate donations. We've actually talked to some corporations about that have matching fund type things, or matching grants. And as I mentioned earlier, we have approximately $18,000 currently dedicated to it. And then we would determine capability for the town to contribute funds and labor. For example, hotel funds, since we would like to think this is a significant asset to the town. And that takes me to the next slide, actually. What does this do for the town? We feel like it provides recognition at a federal, state, and county level. It provides a place for gatherings and events, and certainly celebrations. It furthers our patriotic image, and it provides the opportunity for veterans organizations to utilize it, which can bring, it doesn't have to just be Trophy Club veterans. And, I was talking with someone that Westlake doesn't have a Veterans Memorial, Southlake doesn't. So there's a good possibility that we can bring in other people and visitors and other funds, in so creating a destination. And our next steps. The next steps that we're looking at right now, once we have your approval, is updated phasing plans. We definitely need more construction info. We've talked with some people and about the possibility of assisting, and we recognize that we just needed more detail on those designs. We need to determine what the town might do in helping us, whether it be in the streets area with some of the concrete, whether it be the parks, what's there. We need to gather our committee and subcommittees, develop our project plans, and of course do the fundraising. We'll need to finalize the roles and responsibilities charts. Those are my suggestions, so need to agree on that. And develop a contract for the ongoing effort. As we said, and I think you, Mayor Sanders, have talked about that, the need for an interlocal agreement, or that's not really an interlocal agreement, but a contract with the Women's Club, such that, these are our responsibilities and these are yours. So that is my presentation.
Thank you,
I
Connie.
have the diagrams if anybody needs to see the phasing diagrams. Did you?
Anybody need to see those, or you kind of understand what we're talking about? I'm okay.
You're
now.
okay with
We
that?
just leave it up, and then if it comes up.
Just leave
we
it
can-
there and we'll see if we have a
Okay.
question. honey.
And I'll just show you one other thing here. This, I mentioned the walls, the 5 walls. This is what we were talking about, okay?
And the obelisk.
Yes, and the obelisk here, thank you, and then you'll notice the line that leads to the matching or the corresponding wall. Okay?
Thank you, Connie.
Do you,
Council, we're not taking action, but we're trying to give direction to staff and hopefully direction for the Women's Club. So, comments, questions?
I think you're agendaed to take action.
Okay, we are, okay. I just read the end of it that said discussion of same. Okay, all right. I apologize. Okay. All right, Philip, what did you have?
I've got questions on the, can you go back to the, not the funding slide, but what you've actually paid and what, it's way at the beginning, because I'm a little confused. So I was under the impression that we did the 2,400, that we did that. I sent an email to Adam and he wrote back to me that a crew of 3 took 4 hours to install the base and flagpole.
Yes, the town did the installation, but this cost that I have, and this was a lot of historical before I was on this, so I was trying to gather information. This is the actual cost of the materials. So it does not include the cost of the labor that the town did, but just the material part of it.
Okay, so, because I go back to the minutes from the last 2 meetings ago, and when Kathy Carlton, she stated that the Trophy Club Women's Club has raised approximately $20,000 and has already put those funds into the Veterans Memorial Project. So I'm not sure how she comes up with 20 and that is not 20. And then she goes on to say that Trophy Club Women's Club has already set aside another $15,000 to use for this project and is awaiting the next phase to be approved.
Well, if you look at the first half, it's actually 21,000, right?
So
Which is not
you're counting the 5,000 that's not yet paid.
Yes, what she may have done in the numbers she was looking at is that we do have some elements that were donated that I don't necessarily have in here. Like the benches and the labor. And she may have been looking at some of that because there were a number of in-kind donations. The other thing is, though, that does account for 21,000, and below it, that counts for another 21,000, but that's actually only 16 because the 5,000 above.
So the first phase, I mean, this is actually the third
Right.
different
Right,
set of plans that we've seen.
yes.
And so
That's what I was mentioning earlier
I'm
about.
confused on phases too. We've had phase 1 several
Right.
times now. I guess what my question is, the first phase, is that 81,000 in addition to what's already there, or is this counting the 20,000?
It's 81,000 in addition to
So
cost,
it's 81,000 more.
correct, for the next phase.
So I guess the hard time that I'm having, Connie, is how are you going to raise $81,000 to get this done in 60 days like you want to do when you've had trouble in 4 years raising 20,000?
Well, first of all, the construction is 60 days. So I'm
After
not
you-
saying it will get done from today in 60 days, but
I know, but you had a date of this year,
of November, right,
right?
yes.
So
So that's my goal. We have to shoot for a goal. We have a very, in the past several years, the Garden Club was doing it as an offshoot of some other things. We are having a very focused committee on completing this effort, on raising the funds, on going for corporate funds, on going for, and as I said, if the town is willing to put up some hotel funds, that would make it even better. But at this point, we just have to try.
And I understand that.
Because the effort wasn't there, Philip, to raise that excuse me, Councilman
Connie,
Schaffner,
this
the
is-
effort wasn't there.
This has never been completed. The first phase, 4 years ago, that has never been completed. And then we fast forward two more years, and we get a whole different plan, and that's never been completed.
Well-
Obviously, this has never been approved, but.
The
I
thing
go-
is,
I
with
go
that
back to
plan-
this,
okay.
that the council you were on approved this. And if you look at a Google map, the only thing that is done is the
We have the
four
walls and the flags,
thing and the flag.
and you have
That's it.
the sidewalk
This is
coming up.
where the pavers were gonna go that people bought, and all the concrete around that, and this has never been done. And I just,
Well, see, what happened is that, they started, they built the first part, and then they built, put the big monument sign in and the walkway up. And then it was like, wait a minute, let's take a step back and say, we really think, there's a lot of veterans, a lot of interest, a lot of patriotism in the town. Stars and Stripes has really built up a great deal as well of the consensus of wanting to do this. So we said, let's take a step back and let's put this together. It's been elevated. It was the Garden Club doing it. This committee is now its own committee, and it's actually, I'm a board member of the Women's Club. I mean, it's been elevated to that level. And we said, okay, let's make this real. And Tignall came along and said, we'd like to donate something to help you market this. We didn't have that before. We had
Right.
people's homegrown designs.
can
All
I
right,
just give you?
let me,
Can I ask a question, Phil, real quick? Oh, sorry.
yeah, Philip, do you have other questions?
No, all I want to say is I understand what you're saying, and I understand the history, because I've looked back. So my position on this is that I think exactly what I said at the retreat, that I think that we should take this project on, finish what is approved, build a parking lot that will service the Veterans Memorial and the baseball, and just take it over and complete it. And that's the position that I have.
All right, Garrett?
I don't differ much from Philip's position. My question is this, and I learned did you give your presentation in the last council meeting?
2
Phil?
meetings ago.
Two ago. And I was surprised to learn that there was a design approved. And my question is simple. If there was a design approved, it was approved by the council that you oversaw when you were the mayor, why didn't someone come to the council and ask if there was an interest to expand this project before all this work was done?
I think most likely that the reason is that having raised some funds and having enough interest in the Women's Club, we felt that it was something that we could do better, that we could do better than we had done it.
And
And
I
we wanted
understand
to
that,
move
but
forward.
what-
And I guess, I don't
Why didn't
quite,
somebody come and say, town, is there an interest to make this bigger? Because a lot of work has gone into this.
that's
but-
right.
But nobody came and said, hey, we have the desire. It seems like somebody went out and said, let's go spend time, money, resources, energy, and, I mean, we may, like Philip said, say, the town has a different plan for this property. I'm just not sure why somebody didn't come forward
Well,
and ask us if the town had a desire to expand this.
well, the thing is that the town gave the permission to build a Veterans Park. And we had started, it was a permission to build a Veterans Park. They had started with, and it was always intended to grow, to improve. Actually, when we went out with Tignall and did the design, we did that last July. And I know every one of you have seen it, saw it at that point in July, not here in a council meeting, but we did have it on display and we did show it. And I guess the other part is, I think that I see this as something that we are doing for the town. Since the town approved a Veterans Park, we wanted to make the Veterans Park better and make it more substantial.
All right. Ryland,
No.
and then I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah,
Ryland?
I just want to make a distinction because what was approved was what Philip showed in the drawing. I think what maybe Garrett's trying to say, and that what has got me concerned, is that that's not an approval to expand the size of it carte blanche. And so we did see it in July, but at the 4th of July festival, when I'm with Courtney and the girls walking around, that's not the time to go up and say, we've had multiple discussions in different contexts about the way to use that land. And no one with the women's club was privy to that because it's town land, and we've had multiple discussions for different reasons. And so when I see that, I'm like, oh, geez, somebody, just like Garrett said, someone has put some thought and effort into this. The cart got before the horse. So my issue, honestly, above all else, is that I don't think expanding the footprint is the right thing to do for the town. I don't have a problem with improving upon the footprint that was approved in September
Okay.
2012, but
Let me just make one,
Let him finish.
that's all. That's it, really. You could sense that I was wrapping up. I just that's it. That I really have a hard time expanding the footprint, given that it's very ambitious, and the previous ambitions, I'd rather just see that fulfilled in some fashion. We've had maintenance issues in the past, which are on the town, and we need to rectify that as well. And we need to figure out the best use of that land for the community, while keeping a Veterans Memorial in place.
All right, Connie, you want to respond?
yes. Two things. One, I think that the design we've come up with will improve the maintainability. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I looked back at what was approved back in 2012, and one of the things that said is, this is where we wanted to start. And the council told the Women's Club at the time that, and they said we wanted to build it over time, and they said, fine, work with staff, and just make sure, making sure it fits our requirements, our town building codes. Never saying, we didn't tell the Women's Club, you have to come back and get the design approved again.
So how
Now,
much bigger would you have been willing to make it before you felt like you needed to come back and have that
it is-
conversation
well,
with
I am
us?
back here, but it is within the footprint of what we originally had.
I think based on Philip's information that we may just have a fundamental disagreement about that.
Okay.
All right, I got a couple of questions and comments. If I understood correctly, the new Phase 1, or the next phase you're proposing, is an $81,000 additional expenditure,
Right.
of which you have
17.
20-something thousand, maybe, depending on that 5,000, where
Right.
it goes. I like the idea of a cooperative project, if we can define it appropriately. And one of the things that came out as you were going through your slides was, assuming we went forward with a project, who awards the bid? And because one of the things was, you said, well, the town needs to supervise it, make sure it's built to standards. Then it made me go to, well, who's got the liability in reference to somebody getting injured on the job? Is that towards us, because it's our property? And so it made me begin to say, reality is, this should be a town project with cooperation or fundraising aspect maybe coming from another entity to solve those problems. And that's a little bit what I was referring to previously, is we really need to understand how that works. And having a document of understanding about responsibilities is good, but there are some aspects of liability and awarding a bid that deals. I like the idea that picnic areas stay, personally. However, I do have a concern about Phase 4 water wall. I see that as a maintenance issue. If I was approving plans, I would probably say, strip that out, although it's beautiful and it's nice. My concern is that we won't maintain it well, and it'll just become an eyesore for us. And then the last thing I had was, we heard a report about the light pole, and that originally there was some research about maybe LED lighting or something that was on the top of the pole that provided the illumination that was needed, but that was expensive, and so we installed this ground-based light. Well, I've been out there when the ground-based light was on,
It's hot.
and it's extremely hot, and it is low so that any small child could go up there and put their hands on it, and it's probably not the safest installation in the world. So for my preference, if we do move forward, doing it a way that maybe solves some of those lighting issues might be better. What I've seen done in the past, if you weren't on top of the pole, was actually recessed lighting so that you didn't have the heat aspect of that. but I still have this concerns of how do we go forward. So Connie, what you were not aware of is at our planning retreat last weekend, when we were looking at capital projects and giving direction to staff to say, what do you bring to us in next year's budget? One of the things was this concept of parking lot.
Yeah,
And
you had mentioned that.
what I haven't think that I've seen is how does the parking lot fit into this area? And I know that Tignall looked at it, and I need to see a master plan to see what it might agree to. It's a multi-purpose parking lot. It's to solve some problems for school. It's some solve some problems maybe for baseball or the park itself. Obviously, could solve some problems for having an event at the Veterans Memorial to get cars off the street. So, but I too have this concern that's been expressed that we need to somehow get control of what are we doing, who's responsible for what. I appreciate the fact that the Women's Club has said, hey, this is significant to us, we want to raise money from it. The Women's Club, over the 20 years that I've been here, has done all sorts of projects for the town and provided money for all sorts of things, which we appreciate that dedication to do that. Let's just use this opportunity to bring this in control and agree upon what a plan is going forward, given the fact that it's on town land.
Well,
And
You have an answer?
we made a decision as a body to say, we're not going to move it. We talked about maybe going to the new town hall and said, no, we're not going to do that. So it's going to stay where it is. So now we're at this point to say, what are our next steps? And I'm not sure that, at least I was not prepared totally to know what the next steps were. We were waiting for the presentation and be able to get everything so that we could maybe on another agenda say, staff, what do we expect staff to do? What do we want to go forward, and how do we want to deal with that? So those are kind of my comments and statements. So anybody else on council?
Can I just answer a couple?
Sure, go
of
ahead.
those? One of the things is that what we're looking for right now is to get, I know the feeling on the water wall, for example. What we'd like to do is get approval for the next phase, for phase one, so that we can begin to move forward. Because if we have any hope of having this for a Veterans Day, we need to be moving on it, okay? So that's the thing, we only are looking for approval for the first phase.
All right, thank you.
I think that is might make that a little bit clearer. I don't believe we have extended. I did talk to Tom about he mentioned the parking lot when we asked him, we were talking about the flags. He saw that as a compliment, not any issue, based on the design, because they did the survey and they placed it. So he said that was there was no conflict there.
I understand that may be the comment. I just hadn't seen it. So I just
Right.
need to see the whole area. That's just me personally
Well,
looking at it. So.
and he's preparing that, if I understand correctly.
All right, so Greg?
I look at page 16 and roles and responsibilities of the town. We're practically there already and controlling it with maintenance and operational management. Maybe I'm on a lonely island, but I think the town at this point in time should take it over now rather than later, because eventually at some point in time, the town's going to have to take it over. And so my thing is, and let's finish the original phase. If we got to add some money to it through a hotel tax, maybe we can do that. But my other question is, the ILA, who would that be signed with? Because now it seems like there's three organizations, the town, the Trophy Club, Women's Club, and now a Veterans Committee. Is that just an
No.
ad hoc?
The Veterans Committee is a committee of the Trophy Club Women's Club. So any agreement would be with the Women's Club.
That's fine, okay.
And
Okay, and
you
that-
listed some money from Stars and Stripes
Yes,
in the past or the future?
that was passed. They've
Passed.
already given us that money.
Yeah. So again, that's another charity
But-
that might be a source of funds that could either give it to Women's Club or give it directly to whoever was in charge of the project if they choose to do so, assuming they still want to do those.
So that would be my suggestion, that we just take it over now rather than 2
Well,
or 3 years from now.
Understand
I'm
something.
not, I may be on a lonely island on that one.
Well, taking it over, I mean, it's not like taking it over now or then. The town has always been basically responsible for the maintenance. Is that correct? Yeah. So that's not a change. And maybe it wasn't always a focus, okay? But here's the thing is the Women's Club is 501c3, which puts us, as far as fundraising, in a much better position. This could be a public, a good public-private partnership. There's no reason we can't work together, and I think we should work together on it. But
And I get that. I get that. My point is that if we're in charge, now you go raise the money, get all the money for the next phase, and we control that, and we take care of it. And we might have to add some additional labor, some additional hotel tax. I get all that. But I just don't want to see we get into it, the Women's Club builds 2 monuments when you need 5, and then it sits for 2 or 3 years before the other 3 services.
No. You wouldn't do that, because that's what I was explaining. The phase would be complete. You would not start building the phase until you knew you had the funds for it.
All right. So
Oh,
I
just
have
2 more
three-
things, 2 more things.
All right, go ahead,
I agree with the mayor about a water feature. Our town does not do water features well.
Fine, as I said, I'm looking for phase 1.
And just personal to me, walking on pavers with people's names on them and in memorial, I don't like people walk, maybe they could be put somewhere else, so that it's more of a look rather than just stepping on
Actually,
them.
the way they're set up is and most people walk around them, there is a pathway around them.
Okay.
All right, so I had 3 council members who got my attention that they wanted to speak. First was Councilmember Schaffner, second was Tim Kurtz, I believe, and third was Ryland Rowe. And I have a fourth, which is Jim Perro. So, all right, so Schaffner, you have the floor.
Well, Tim and Jim can speak, because they haven't spoke yet, so let them speak before I'm.
All right, so Tim?
Excuse me, I don't know so much about the Women's Club, so has the Women's Club ever raised $300,000 for a project before?
No, we've never tried to. However, the Women's Club has raised a tremendous amount of money, giving scholarships and grants throughout the area every year.
I understand that, but for one project, $300,000 is a huge
That's
amount
why
of
we
money.
have it in phases. That's why we have them broken down.
Right, but us as a council, since you sat here before, you understand that we have to figure out what's best and what's doable, right? It's what we think is doable, and if we get into a project and it doesn't get done, it seems like we end up taking them over and paying for it. So we
But-
don't want to go out and say that we're going to take this on, which is in 4 phases, and then we can't raise the money on phase 2, and then we're expected, in a partnership with you, you come back and you say, well, we can't raise the money, but we still want to do it. And it's not something that we want to do. So we want to make sure that we button down everything from now on, because I think a bunch of people up here think that's a whole lot of money for that project.
And I agree with you, and that's exactly why we were looking for approval for phase 1. And phase 1, if we only do phase 1 of this design, we still have a nice Veterans Park. If we find, and as we hope to do and as we anticipate, that we are able to raise the funds, then we will move forward. And we won't start on this phase until we have secured the funds, or, that we know we'll have the funds. We wouldn't do it. So you won't wind up with a phase partially completed.
So let me ask you a question. If you don't raise $81,000, then nothing happens to the park.
I have every intention of raising that money.
If you do not raise the $81,000, what happens?
If
You
we
then
were,
come back to us and say, take it over and build what we were supposed to build in the first place?
no, I think that if we were to go out and say, this is just not going to work, okay? I don't anticipate this, but let's just say it's not going to work. There's no way. Then what we would have to do is to relook at the design. Unless the town wanted to go ahead with it, fine. But if not, then we would have to relook at the design.
All right, Tim, any more questions or comments? Ryland?
Okay. A couple things that have been said along the way. One, obviously, is that the town owns the land. The second one is, as you pointed out, that the town has handled the maintenance in the past and would continue to do so, obviously, because the town does own the land. That gets me back to why I'm just troubled with this. Why it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because I'm looking at something that has been heavily marketed, that someone else owns, that someone else will maintain, that you don't have the sign off that it can actually be done, much less whether or not it's attainable, which was what Tim pointed out. That's just a really bad foot to get off on when we're tasked with trying to figure out what's the best use of all of the land that the town owns. My fear is that if we continue down this path, we're going to continue marketing phases that haven't been approved yet, as opposed to marketing whatever ultimately does get approved design-wise. And the sad fact of the matter is, you guys have a very elaborate vision here that's been well thought out, but if the town's going to own it and the town's going to maintain it, the town has to have a major input on the design, because it will be up to us how much that's going to cost every taxpayer in Trophy Club into however long that it's there. And so that's ultimately why I just feel like it would be better to kind of look at what we've approved, figure out whether or not that's the desired end goal, or if the desired end goal is something a little more elaborate, decide on something and go from there. And whatever funds you guys can raise to support that, if you're interested, you can deliver that to something that has a higher chance of succeeding, I guess, is my thing. So,
All right, so Jim, before you talk, Philip had passed the chair to two people. He's indicated he wants to go ahead and say something at this time, so I'm going to go back to him before I come to you.
I think all of us here, I think we showed our support for the memorial 2 weeks ago when we left it at the site. So I want to make a motion that the town complete the original approved design, add a sidewalk to connect the memorial to the west sidewalk, change the mulch to turf, and add a parking lot, tasking staff to utilize hotel occupancy tax.
I'll second.
So what you're saying is you don't want to do this at all?
No, I want to do it, but I want to complete it by your timeline, and I want to make it nice, but.
But not by our design?
I don't think that that's feasible. I don't think that you can raise $300,000 for this project, Connie.
I'm not asking, I'm saying,
I don't think you can raise $80,000 for this project. $20,000 in 4 years is all you've raised. And so I
because we haven't focused.
I know, I understand.
We
All right.
haven't,
All right,
Okay.
Connie,
I
just
also
a
wanna
minute,
say
Connie.
one thing.
Connie, we have a motion. Just a
Okay.
minute. You understand this?
I do.
Okay. So we have a motion, and can you restate that for me? I didn't get all of it down.
Yeah. That the town complete the original approved design, add a sidewalk to connect the memorial to the west sidewalk, change the mulch to turf, and add a parking lot, tasking staff to utilize hotel occupancy tax.
So that's not preventing them.
Moment. So I had a second by Rowe. Okay, good. All right. So Greg, I'm sorry. I just was trying to get my notes.
So we're clear, that's not preventing them from going ahead with phase two.
No, they can come back to us at any time to go bigger. But we're gonna complete the original design that came to the council and was approved in 2012. All that's been approved, all that's been completed in that big circle is 3 benches and a flagpole. That's it.
So whatever funds there are, we will
There's more than that.
pay.
But we approved, in 2014, we approved the sidewalk, and we completed that. But the original 2012 design was not complete. So we're gonna complete that. We're gonna make it nice, we're gonna do everything that we have to do to have a nice Veterans Memorial, and we're gonna get it done.
So the funds will be coming either out of hotel tax or general fund, but whatever funds are needed, the town will provide? Okay.
So, let me just
All right.
ask,
So just a minute, Connie. So council, any other questions for clarification on the motion before we take other input?
Well, I do.
Yes, Jim, I'm sorry.
If, again, I don't have that drawing right in front of me like you do, so maybe I'm not. But if we have them do what they originally had approval for, and they intend to pursue at a future date doing the phase 1 and phase 2, if they can raise the necessary funds to accomplish it, while the town is overseeing everything and operating everything as the control factor, could we not be throwing thousands of dollars away, putting that in to turn around 6 months or a year later to rip it out, to install the phase 1 and phase 2 that they're working on to make it what they'd like it to be? I just don't want to take money and spend it and then have to unspend it to put something else in if we're going to change it in the future.
All right,
I,
Rylan?
I think I can answer your question, Jim. I think what you're doing is you're falling into the same trap of several others, which is that assume that just because this is in a big drawing on the wall, that's what we have to do.
Oh, no, we don't have to do it.
Right. So my point is I think what Philip is saying is let's do what was approved. Let's do what Connie voted for in September of 2012. Let's do that. Let's do some of the other things with the area that we know fill significant town needs. And then if if the desire to do more still exists, that design can play off of what's already been completed. I think one of the big frustrations here is that there was an approved plan that took place in 2012, and rather than try to augment that, we're kind of almost wiping the slate clean, and I'm uncomfortable with that. So I think maybe, at least for me, the way I would answer your question is that I would say any future expansion, obviously we want it to play well with what's already there, because that would be the most prudent use of resources.
I'd just like to say one thing. I'd like to, first of all, I think it's important to understand that my understanding was that we had approval to do a Veterans Park. It did not, to be honest, occur to me, even though I know I was there, that we needed to do this. Because the feeling is that we have people wanting to do a really cool thing for Trophy Club. And I was not attempting to avoid anyone or to, circumvent or anything. I wanted to do something that we could really be proud of. And I think that's what this design is.
All right, thank you, Connie. So,
And you may have some other people that want to talk before you vote.
okay. So let's see, let's get council discussion, and then I'll open it up for other people in the audience. So Tim?
Yeah, I don't disagree with being the availability to do a stage 2, stage 3 if they come up with it. But like you said, you had a lot of really great people that wanted a Veterans Memorial, and it's been 4 years, and it hasn't been done. I know you weren't on it, the committee the whole time, but it has been 4 years, so the people have been waiting for 4 years to get it done. And, I have to imagine if we build the original Phase 1, that a secondary Phase 2, which can be changed for a short amount of dollars, as opposed to ripping everything out. You can make something look great around it. So I don't know. The people waited 4 years for it to be done. Now you come up with something 4 years later that you're proud of. So I guess you're no longer proud of what you okayed 4 years ago, is what it makes it sound like to us, which I hope isn't the case.
All right, so I have a question, but, all right, and then Jim, I'll come back to you, and I had some citizens raise their hands, so I'll go to those. This is for staff. If I understood Councilman Schaffner's motion, it was to utilize hotel occupancy tax to do the project he defined: sidewalk, parking lot, turf, those kinds of things. Was that right, Philip? Was that what you were doing? So the question is, can we do that all with hotel occupancy tax?
In conjunction with the park and the parking, yes.
Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure we're clear where we're going. And I thought we had that understanding from our retreat, but I just wanted to make it sure. Okay, Jim had his hand up, then Greg, and then if there's nobody on council, I'll go out to the audience.
Yeah, now that I'm seeing these sketches again, I think there's a strong possibility that the Women's Club could take these sketches, and if they did go forward and finish this design, that TNP could easily, just looking at this and the way it's drawn, expand from that in the future, if the Women's Club were successful in raising additional funds, to, in the end, create something almost identical to what they have been showing, and not have to tear anything out. Just looking at this drawing, the way it's put together, if there were any changes, they'd be relatively minor. So I appreciate seeing the drawing, because it makes it a little easier. But I do agree with Greg that the town should be the ones that oversee this project. You're not on the island by yourself, because there's just too many issues at stake, where there's too many different groups and people and parties and likes and dislikes and the legal responsibilities. The town needs to run this thing from the get-go and be supported by the Women's Club for the benefit of the veterans. I agree.
All right, Greg,
Just,
and then I'll go to the
I
rest.
just want to make sure, this motion, this vote, does not prevent anything from going forward, correct?
No, this
I mean, in fact, it adds to it, because we're now adding hotel tax, so they're saving some money as far as to go for that they can apply to the next phase, unless I'm misreading the motion,
There
misunderstanding.
is
the
no
motion.
next phase approved yet. I want to.
No, but they come to us for the next phase.
They'd have to come and request.
Yeah, we need to be thinking long term.
If you really want to be honest, we're completing that center circle. That's where it's 34 feet across. We're adding, and we're doing it not, I'm not saying just throw something up. We want to utilize the pavers, as they mentioned, but we're also adding something that we desperately need, which is parking, which they don't have in their design. So we're adding that, which Ryland can attest to. I think the last meeting, he was late and counted all the cars that park
100
along Parkview.
135 cars along Parkview for Beckopoly two Tuesdays ago,
so
and
this-
86 of them were in a stretch where there is no street lighting.
So this
So
adds-
we have a safety issue.
Right, so this helps with that problem, and it goes to Jim's point that what we build here, which is gonna be nice, which the council has already approved, they can add upon at a later date, if they come to us and they have the funds, or they wanna, it can be built bigger if we decide that at that later date.
And that drawing shows that.
Right.
All right, so,
Answer one thing about that.
no.
It's very hard to go raise funds without a design.
Thank you, Connie. Okay. So, so I had Bill Spiegel, who wanted to make a comment, and then anybody else that wants to come up. Bill, you want to come to the microphone, identify yourself and your address, and then you can speak.
Well, it's very interesting. I'm retired. I'm retired military. I only know about this meeting because I happened to be in Walgreens last Friday, and somebody stopped me because I had my World War II hat on and my Korean War hat on, and told me about this meeting. I never would have known. How many veterans are here tonight? Yeah, see? You have no idea what veterans are thinking, see? Number two, there must be more than me, or he, must be more than two of us in this town. There's got to be. I don't know, but we've got to be notified. We should have had this house full of veterans tonight. We would have told them what we were talking about. We lost a lot of comrades. We lost a lot of friends in these wars. Why in the hell don't we have announcements to have people here to discuss what they would and what they'd like? Nothing better than be able to go to that flagpole over there, which I do, and sit down and pray a little bit and enjoy it. This is beautiful. This lady here, I have no idea how much time she must have spent. But hell, that's a project, guys. That's a project. Now, I know it's money. I could give you all that money right now if you wanted it, but I'm not going to. But I just want to say that we've got to be notified. And I appreciate being a veteran and appreciate there's some concern going on here that we might have a little bit more trophy club. I've only been here since 2000. I've been in trophy clubs. November last year, I was at the trophy club at Palm Springs, California. I missed the November 11th thing here. What a celebration they had there. That's a little town, Palm Springs, California, but we probably had 400 or 500 people there at that November 11th ceremony. I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. We got a beautiful thing for veterans. Anyhow, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and this gentleman here, Jim Perrell, kind of helped me get here tonight. And to all my friends, I thank you.
I just want to say something while Bill's up at the podium.
You have a question?
I found out this past Saturday at our Veterans Breakfast that we're sitting in the presence of a real hero. He not only fought in World War II, he fought in Korea. He survived the Battle of the Bulge, and he fought and maintained the bridge at Remagen. We've seen the movies. He was one of the heroes who kept that bridge from falling into the hands of the Germans and helped us to win World War II. Thank you, Bill.
this poor little kid was drafted at 18 years old. And I went from a private to a corporal to a master sergeant to a chief warrant officer in 28 years. So I enjoy the Army, but I've also had other occupations. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, I had another speaker. Come up, please, state your name and your address, and you have the floor.
I'm Donna Allen. I'm not retired military, but I feel like I am. My husband spent 30-plus years defending our country. My son served 4, and my son-in-law is in a Special Forces Command that we can't even discuss the name. So I didn't know about this project until recently. I joined the Women's Club. I'm still in my 3rd career, but I'm taking time because I want to give back to the community. And when I saw this, I said, this is where I want to be. So I started just kind of talking to people. I have some contacts, some of our clients. We do executive coaching for C-level executives. One of them just retired from Beechcraft. He's a retired Air Force pilot, flew over Vietnam. He's real interested in, even though he just moved from Vaquero over in Westlake, he's real interested in helping talk this up to some of the Air Force guys. The Navy's on board. I don't know what we can raise. I had a student in one of my classes, and my husband started executive coaching at UTD, a master's program, and she's a grant writer. I've spoken with her today. I don't know exactly what she can do. She's looking into what grants might be available for this. I have no idea. But she's on board to identify some grants. I don't know what we can raise. I don't know what short of time frame, but I was looking at all the costs. My background was finance. I spent 20 years in a law firm, managing very large law firms. And I was kind of breaking this down and looking at, when I go around town and I see all the guys pouring concrete and doing certain things, and I kind of wondered, just kind of looking at all these costs, we can contract for some of these things, but can't the city do things cheaper than getting a contract for some of the concrete, the bushes, the trees, so forth? So I was just kind of looking at this. I'm new to this, but I ask you to consider this. We moved here, retired, 3rd career for my husband and I. We came to Texas. We moved to Southlake. That's where the realtor took us. 2 years to the very day when we could not have that capital gains, pay capital on that house. We built a house over in Trophy Club. We loved that this city was so patriotic. Once you live with military families, once you have the support, back in the day before some of these young people were born, I had a baby. I didn't know if my husband was alive, and I didn't know if he was alive for 30 days after that baby was born. When you have that support and you move away from the military and you retire, I missed it. But when we came here, I felt it. And just for FYI, my husband was the one that was, what was it called when you rode in the car?
Grand Marshal.
He was the Grand Marshal this past year. Yes. And we're real proud to be in Trophy Club. So I just ask that it's very important. And if you haven't served and you don't understand the sacrifices, it's a huge sacrifice, and not just for the person. I think, Jim, this gentleman, it's a sacrifice for the family, even for your children.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Appreciate it very much. Anyone else from the audience want to speak? Jim, let me go ahead to the citizen. You want to come forward, identify yourself, and then I'll come back to council.
Do I need to say my name again?
You do.
My name is Don Boy, and I'm at 5 Shasta Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
I just wanted to say that all of us oh, so much more than most of us have any inkling of. The men like Bill and the hundreds of thousands of others that have made the sacrifices they've made. But this meeting is not about that. We will honor those people. This meeting is how to responsibly do it the best way we possibly can so they get the most honor from it. And that's why you guys are here, to make this kind of a decision so that it doesn't end up being less than it could possibly be. The only other question I have about what I've understood to be presented here tonight is, I fully appreciate page 16 and the roles and responsibilities, but I've not heard a single number about the cost to our community of maintaining this. The responsibilities were alluded to and so forth listed, but it's by my math, it's a $310,000 project, not a $300,000 project. And I haven't heard of 1 cent being committed that is readily available to meet that obligation. So I would like to hear what that looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If I might, counsel, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I think Jim wanted to speak. I just want to encourage all of us that what I sense in this is that we are trying to accomplish the best for everybody here. I don't want it to come across to the Women's Club that we don't appreciate what was done, or the past Stars and Stripes people, or anybody that helped make that happen. That's not the case at all. I think we want to make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's, so to speak, to make the project successful. As I look at phase 1 on the slide and on the screens, it wouldn't take a whole lot more maybe from what Philip presented as a motion to move towards that next step. And I think it's been expressed that we're not saying stop. We're saying let's get a certain degree of completeness, and we're trying to use some funds that we don't always have access to make this a better project. It's not saying stop the vision. It's saying let's get it under control. Let's decide who's responsible for what. Let's work out some of these legal aspects before we jump on. It's the way I feel about it. So Jim and then Ryland.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I agree with everything you just said, Mr. Mayor, and I also wanted to suggest to Connie that if she took that original drawing that's been approved to go forward with, and let TNP look at it. Because I'm not an architect, but I can see strong similarities between it and phase 1 of this project. And it may very well be possible that they can design what's been approved in such a way, the angles and the benches and the pole and everything and the concrete, to be the precursor of another phase where you add the walls and you add the pylons. And so I would just simply suggest that you talk to them about taking what you have, and then we can always, as money becomes available, then expand it in a reasonable and responsible way where the funds are there to do the job, and we go on to the next phase, and if you raise more money, we can go on to a third phase as the town sees it as a possibility, and as we come up with the cost to maintain each of those items, because that's, again, put on all the taxpayers, and I don't think the taxpayers will object if they know what it is and what it's going to cost, as the gentleman just asked, that we haven't presented at this point. So why don't you try doing that and see what TNP has to say?
All right. So Connie, were you trying to seek the floor earlier, and I stopped you?
I just,
Come to the microphone, you know.
okay, what I was thinking about is looking at phase 1. Maybe you could think of it as, go ahead, we have $20,000, we'll keep raising funds, go ahead and build phase 1. Do what we have right here is one possibility. The other thing is, please understand that this is a big goal that we have to raise this kind of money, but we have to have something. And I mean, Nick, we've talked about this on multiple projects. I've got to have something in hand to go to people and say, we would like some commitment of funds, but you've got to have something to market. And if I have no design that's approved, I mean, I can't raise funds and then come say, oh, I have money, we can do it. It won't work that way, because not the kind of funds we're talking about. So maybe you all would think, we've got at least $20,000 right now, and or I think we do have close to it. And if we would go with phase one, and you could put in the additional funds and working with the town, however we want to work together to complete it as it's designed.
All right.
Would that be a consideration? Would that be a possibility? And, I mean, Philip's motion, talked about completing phase one, so I don't.
Okay, thank you, Connie.
Okay.
So I have two council people who have their hand up, Ryland and then Greg. Oh, and
So the motion on the floor is to complete what was approved in September of 2012, and also to clean up the grounds in some fashion that will improve the maintenance and the aesthetics. Those of you who remember last July, prior to the July 4th parade, this area was covered with weeds. And a lot of volunteers got out there and removed the weeds. And good on them, but I don't want anybody to have to do that again. Part of Philip's motion is to replace all the mulch with turf. The other part of the motion is to to complete what's already been approved, which adds additional hardscape, which is also low maintenance. What we are doing with this motion is we are making it easier to maintain. We are completing the memorial that we already have, but we're completing the phase or whatever you want to call it that was approved. And we're going to have a place, just like we do today, to do all the things that we do. And we don't have to market anything. We don't have to raise untold amounts of capital to get it done. We don't have to deal with the cart before the horse thing where Connie feels like she needs to market something that she hasn't had the town commit to yet. And, if what we have today is good enough for Mr. Splickle to go and pray at, then I don't understand why we need a $100,000 memorial or a $300,000 memorial. What we need is what was approved on September 24th, 2012, and it needs to be well taken care of, and we need to respect it and deal with that and enjoy it and reap the supposed benefits that we're all talking about and be done with it. And so that's why I support the motion as stated.
so I had Greg and then I had
Just to the gentleman's point, as far as taxes, hotel tax has very limited use. And under the law, this is one of them, where we could fund part of this, especially the parking lot, and part of the finishing of phase one.
all right, and then Garrett.
One thing, I'll speak to supporting the motion. One is, I believe exactly what Ryland said. One, we owe it to our veterans to finish this memorial and to make it respectable. And I think that's what the motion on the floor is to do, exactly that. So also to add some parking that's a little bit closer to it that'll help our community be safer. So I think we owe it to this community to finish this memorial, to make it more cost-effective to maintain. And I'm not sure why we're talking about future things during this motion. I think if there's something future to take place, that needs to be brought before us at another time. But Philip's motion, I think, is the right thing to do for our veterans. Finish this memorial that's taken 4 years, put in the parking lot, and make it manageable so it doesn't look like a disgrace. It did. I mean, it looked horrible. I mean, it was embarrassing, and I don't want it to look like that again.
All right, so without objection, I'm going to call for the vote to move us forward. All in favor of the motion to complete the original design as of September 2012, change out the mulch for turf, add the sidewalk, and use hotel occupancy tax to fund it along with a parking lot, please show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. The motion does carry. Connie, thanks for coming to make the presentation. I think we still have plans to deal with, details to work out. We appreciate your work, and we'll see how we can work together to accomplish some of these tasks. So thank you, and thanks to the citizens for speaking tonight.
May I ask one question? I don't understand, okay? I just want to understand.
Come on.
Where we ended up. Because from what I'm hearing Ryland say, he wants nothing more, and Garrett, you want nothing more.
No,
You just want to finish what's there and nothing more. Is that what you're telling me?
All right, so-
Or am I going further?
I didn't interpret that there's nothing more. He's making a decision about the motion. So as you're very familiar, parliamentary procedure is we have a motion that was very specific.
Correct.
Garrett pointed out that discussion went way beyond what the motion
Way
dealt
past
with. So we've dealt with a specific motion. You've made a presentation. This was the first time we've had this particular presentation, and it'll be something that we continue to discuss, I think, and
That's what I want
look
to
at
know.
our,
It's-
our plans. It's just, this is where we are today. And so I don't think Ryland was saying never again, but
No, but since
But I don't
since you
wanna
did
keep working
reference
on it
a
if-
comment I made, I will clarify my position. It's just me speaking. I don't want something marketed that isn't a design that the town has approved, because what that does is that puts folks like the folks that spoke tonight in immediate odds against us before we ever have an opportunity to do the job that we're set up here to do, which is to try to make the best overall decision.
But you-
So, and I understand that's a challenge you're going to have to work through.
all right, so Tim?
My opinion is that you shouldn't be marketing anything now, but you should wait until phase one is built, and then go back to Perkins, and if you're looking at a phase two, have them design around what that is, and then you'll have something to come back to market off of. Right now, you got us to pay for it. We paid for phase one. Wasn't the exact phase one that you wanted, but it was the phase one that you actually adopted 4 years ago. So now, you don't have to raise money on it, it's being done. The veterans are gonna get a great memorial, and if the women's club and the veterans club wants to, make it larger, then go off of what's built once it's finished. But right now, you're like you say, you're trying to raise money off of something that's not there, something that's half done. At least it'll be something done that we'll all be proud of by November, no matter what. So you don't have to raise money, but if you wanna raise money, wait until after phase one is done and build around that. That would be my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Connie. Appreciate everybody coming tonight and speaking tonight.